The first time Nisai Thompson saw her husband Skip running across a busy Florida highway with a blanket clutched in his weathered hands, she knew their quiet Sunday drive had taken an unexpected turn toward the extraordinary. The sound that had made him slam on the brakes wasn't the usual hum of interstate traffic or the distant call of coastal birds. It was something broken, something crying out in pain against the harsh backdrop of speeding vehicles and hot asphalt. Her heart raced as she watched Skip approach the injured form huddled against the guardrail, where amber eyes blazed with fear and defiance despite obvious trauma. In that suspended moment between discovery and action, Nisai felt the weight of choice settle between them, the ancient decision between intervention and letting fate take its cruel course that every compassionate soul faces when confronted with suffering. What neither of them could know then was that this single moment would alter the trajectory of 3 lives forever, binding 2 humans and 1 wild predator, in a connection that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the boundaries between helping and interfering with nature's harsh realities. If you enjoy the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Skip and Nisai had been driving the coastal highways of west-central Florida for 2 hours, enjoying one of their leisurely Sunday excursions, when the sight first caught Skip's attention through the afternoon haze rising from the sun-baked pavement. At first, he thought it might be a large domestic cat that had wandered too close to the dangerous thoroughfare, but something in the size and movement pattern made him slow their sedan and pull onto the narrow shoulder of Interstate 75, his trained eye as a former paramedic recognizing the telltale signs of an animal in severe distress. The October heat had been particularly oppressive, transforming the asphalt into a radiating furnace and making the roadside a deadly trap for any creature seeking shelter in the sparse shade of the guardrails. As a recently retired emergency medical technician who had spent 30 years responding to crisis situations, Skip had developed an instinct for recognizing when immediate intervention could mean the difference between life and death. What he hadn't expected was to find himself face to face with a full-grown bobcat, approximately 18 months old by his estimate, trapped against the metal barrier by what appeared to be multiple injuries from a vehicle strike. The cat's tawny coat was matted with blood and road debris, making its normally camouflaged form starkly visible against the metallic surface. But it wasn't just the physical trauma that posed an immediate threat. It was the cat's location, mere feet from traffic moving at 70 miles per hour, and its obvious disorientation that made every passing vehicle a potential death sentence. Golden eyes tracked Skip's movement with the intense focus of a predator, but there was something wrong with the bobcat's coordination. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle, suggesting possible neurological damage, and its attempts to maintain a defensive posture were hampered by what appeared to be injuries to its left hind leg and shoulder. Nisai, call 911. Skip called back to his wife, who was already reaching for her phone. Tell them we have an injured bobcat on I-75, northbound at mile marker 213, and see if you can find the number for any wildlife rehabilitation centers in the area. Skip had dealt with countless emergency situations during his medical career, but approaching an injured wild predator presented unique challenges. The bobcat was clearly in pain and likely terrified, making it unpredictable and potentially dangerous despite its injuries. Every instinct the animal possessed would be telling it to fight or flee, and with flight compromised by its condition, Skip knew he was looking at a cornered predator with nothing left to lose. But there was something in those amber eyes, a combination of intelligence and desperation that reminded him of human patients he'd treated who were conscious enough to understand their dire circumstances. The bobcat wasn't just injured. It was aware of its vulnerability, and that awareness seemed to create a moment of mutual recognition between species. Moving slowly and deliberately, Skip retrieved an old blanket from their car's emergency kit. His plan was simple in concept but terrifyingly complex in execution. Somehow get close enough to safely contain the bobcat without causing further injury to the animal or harm to himself, then transport it to professional care before its injuries became fatal or before another vehicle finished what the first collision had started. "Easy there, big guy," Skip murmured, his voice carrying the same calm authority he'd used with frightened accident victims throughout his career. "I know you're hurt, and I know you're scared, but we're going to get you some help." The bobcat's response was immediate and predictable, a low growl that seemed to emanate from deep within its chest, ears flattened against its skull, and muscles tensed despite obvious pain. But Skip noticed something encouraging. The cat wasn't attempting to flee, whether due to injury or some instinctive understanding that this human represented help rather than threat. The bobcat remained stationary as Skip approached. The next few minutes unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance between predator and would-be rescuer. Skip moved incrementally closer, speaking continuously in low, soothing tones while keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. The bobcat watched every step, its breathing labored but its attention focused entirely on Skip's approach. When Skip was close enough to see the extent of the animal's injuries, road rash along its left side, a possible fracture in its rear leg, and concerning head trauma that explained its coordination problems, he made his move. In one fluid motion, he cast the blanket over the bobcat, immediately wrapping the startled animal in a secure but gentle embrace that immobilized its claws while protecting both rescuer and rescued. The bobcat's initial struggle was fierce but brief, its strength clearly compromised by its injuries and the stress of its ordeal. Within moments, Skip had the animal securely bundled and was carrying it toward their car, his paramedic training helping him maintain control while minimizing further trauma to his patient. "Got him," he called to Nisai, who had already opened the rear door and cleared space in their backseat. "What did you find out about wildlife centers?" "There's a place called Big Cat Rescue in Tampa," Nisai replied, her voice tight with concern as she watched her husband carefully position the wrapped bobcat in their car. "It's about 45 minutes from here, and they specialize in wild cats." I left a message explaining the situation. The drive to Tampa seemed to stretch endlessly, punctuated by worried glances at their unusual passenger, and the occasional soft sound from within the blanket that suggested the bobcat was still conscious but mercifully calm. Skip found himself talking to the animal during the drive, a one-sided conversation that helped steady his own nerves as much as it might have provided comfort to their patient. "You're going to be okay," he repeated like a mantra he'd used with countless human patients. "These people at Big Cat Rescue know exactly how to help cats like you. They've been doing this for years." Nisai navigated while monitoring their phones for return calls from the rescue facility. The weight of their decision was becoming more apparent with each passing mile. They had essentially kidnapped a wild predator based on nothing more than compassion and Skip's medical instincts, with no guarantee that their intervention would ultimately benefit the animal. But as they approached the outskirts of Tampa, Nisai's phone rang with a call from Carol Baskin, the founder of Big Cat Rescue. "We got your message," Carol said, her voice immediately conveying the calm competence that had made her facility a renowned sanctuary for big cats in crisis. "Bring him directly to our medical facility. We'll have Dr. Rodriguez standing by. He's our staff veterinarian who specializes in wild cat trauma." The Big Cat Rescue Facility exceeded both Skip and Nisai's expectations. Nestled on several acres of natural habitat, the sanctuary was home to dozens of rescued big cats, each with their own story of survival and rehabilitation. More importantly, the medical facilities were equipped specifically for handling wild predators safely and humanely. Dr. Miguel Rodriguez met them at the entrance to the medical building, his experience immediately apparent as he assessed the situation, and directed them to a specialized examination room designed for handling stressed wild animals. The room was equipped with veterinary restraint systems that could safely immobilize patients without causing additional trauma, and the lighting was deliberately subdued to reduce stress on animals already overwhelmed by their circumstances. "Let's see what we're dealing with," Dr. Rodriguez said gently as Skip carefully transferred the still-wrapped Bobcat to the examination table. "Can you tell me exactly how you found him and what his condition was at the scene?" Skip provided a detailed account of the rescue while Dr. Rodriguez began his preliminary examination. The veterinarian's hands moved with practiced skill, assessing the extent of the bobcat's injuries while the animal remained surprisingly docile within the blanket's confines. "He's definitely been hit by a vehicle," Dr. Rodriguez confirmed after several minutes of careful examination. "Possible fracture in the left femur, significant road rash, and I'm concerned about potential head trauma based on his neurological responses. But his vital signs are stable, which is encouraging." The examination revealed the full extent of the bobcat's ordeal. Beyond the obvious injuries, the cat showed signs of dehydration and exhaustion that suggested he'd been suffering by the roadside for several hours before Skip and Nisai discovered him. Without their intervention, Dr. Rodriguez explained, the animal would likely not have survived another day in the Florida heat. "What we're calling him?" Dr. Rodriguez asked as he prepared to administer pain medication and antibiotics. Skip and Nisai exchanged glances, realizing they hadn't considered naming their patient. "Well," Skip said with a slight smile, "I guess we could call him Skip, after the guy who was crazy enough to chase a bobcat with a blanket." Dr. Rodriguez chuckled as he administered the medications. "Skip, then. That's actually fitting. Many of our residents are named after their rescuers or the circumstances of their rescue." For the next several hours, Skip and Nisai waited while Dr. Rodriguez and his team worked to stabilize their patient. X-rays confirmed a fractured femur that would require surgical repair, but the head trauma appeared less severe than initially feared. Most encouragingly, Skip the bobcat showed no signs of spinal injury despite the violence of his collision with the vehicle. "He's a fighter," Dr. Rodriguez reported as they prepared Skip for surgery. "Young, strong, and his injuries, while serious, are definitely treatable. The question will be whether he can recover sufficiently to be released back to the wild." The concept of release was something Skip and Nisai hadn't fully considered during their rescue mission. They'd focused entirely on getting the injured animal to safety, but now they faced the complex reality of wild animal rehabilitation. Success would be measured not just by the bobcat's physical recovery, but by his ability to resume his natural behaviors and survive independently in his native habitat. If you enjoy the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Skip's surgery was successful, with Dr. Rodriguez able to repair the fractured femur using internal fixation that would allow proper healing, while minimizing the need for extended immobilization. The road rash was cleaned and treated, and the head trauma showed signs of improvement as the swelling decreased under treatment with anti-inflammatory medications. But the most remarkable aspect of Skip's recovery was his behavioral response to his human caregivers. Unlike most wild bobcats, who remain intensely fearful and aggressive throughout their rehabilitation, Skip seemed to recognize that the humans around him were trying to help. While he never became truly tame, he showed an unusual tolerance for handling and medical procedures that made his treatment much more manageable. "I've been doing this for 20 years, confided Sarah Martinez, the sanctuary's head of rehabilitation, as she observed Skip during his second week of recovery. "I've never seen a wild bobcat adapt to captivity quite like this. It's almost as if he understands that we're trying to heal him." Skip and Nisai visited regularly during the bobcat's recovery, bringing updates from Dr. Rodriguez and witnessing the gradual transformation of the broken animal they'd rescued into a magnificent example of his species. Skip's coat regained its natural luster, his coordination improved dramatically, and his strength returned to the point where he could easily have escaped his enclosure if he'd chosen to do so. But he didn't choose escape. Instead, Skip the Bobcat seemed content to remain in his rehabilitation enclosure, showing curiosity about his surroundings and interest in the enrichment activities designed to maintain his natural behaviors. Most remarkably, he showed what could only be described as recognition when Skip and Nisai visited, approaching the front of his enclosure and making soft vocalizations that seemed distinctly different from his responses to other humans. Animals remember kindness, Carol Baskin explained during one of Skip and Nisai's visits. We see it here all the time with our rescues. They may not understand the details of what happened to them, but they remember being helped when they were vulnerable. After 6 weeks of intensive rehabilitation, Skip the Bobcat faced the crucial test that would determine his future: assessment for release back to the wild. Dr. Rodriguez and the rehabilitation team conducted a series of evaluations designed to measure his hunting instincts, coordination, and fear responses, all critical factors in determining whether he could survive independently. The results were mixed but ultimately encouraging. Skip's physical recovery was complete, his reflexes were sharp, and his natural hunting behaviors remained intact. However, his reduced fear response to humans, the same trait that had made his medical care easier, posed potential risks if he were released in areas with significant human activity. He needs to go back to wild habitat that's far from residential areas, Dr. Rodriguez explained to Skip and Nisai during a consultation about release options. His tolerance for humans, while helpful during rehabilitation, could put him at risk if he associates people with food or safety. The release location chosen was a remote area of the Mayaka River State Park, where Skip could re-establish territory far from human habitation, while having access to the diverse prey base and water sources essential for bobcat survival. The area was also monitored by wildlife biologists who could track his progress and intervene if problems arose. The day of Skip's release arrived sooner than his human rescuers were emotionally prepared for. After nearly 2 months of daily updates and regular visits, saying goodbye to the animal they'd saved felt like losing a member of their family, even though they knew release was the ultimate goal of all their efforts. Loading Skip into the specialized transport carrier felt both triumphant and heartbreaking. He would return to the wild life he was meant to live, but Skip and Nisai would lose the unique connection they'd formed with this remarkable animal. "This is what we worked for," Skip reminded his wife as they followed the big cat rescue transport vehicle to Mayaka. "He belongs out there, free." The release itself was carefully orchestrated to minimize stress and maximize Skip's chances of successful adaptation. His transport carrier was positioned in a clearing near water, surrounded by dense vegetation that would provide immediate cover and hunting opportunities. When the carrier door was opened, Skip emerged cautiously, his amber eyes scanning the unfamiliar territory with the intense focus of a predator assessing new hunting grounds. For several minutes, he remained near the carrier, as if uncertain whether this new freedom was real or temporary. Then, with a fluid grace that reminded everyone present why bobcats were such successful predators, he melted into the undergrowth and disappeared from view. "That's exactly what we wanted to see," Dr. Rodriguez said with satisfaction. "Quick assessment, immediate move to cover, no looking back. He's ready for this." Follow-up monitoring over the next several months confirmed that Skip had successfully re-established himself in his new territory. Trail cameras occasionally captured images of him hunting, patrolling, and exhibiting all the natural behaviors that indicated successful adaptation to his wild environment. But the most meaningful confirmation of his successful return to the wild came 6 months after his release, when wildlife biologists documented Skip establishing a territory and showing signs of interaction with a female bobcat in the area. The injured, confused animal that Skip Thompson had rescued with nothing But a blanket and compassionate instincts had not only survived, but was thriving and potentially contributing to the next generation of his species. If you enjoy the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Years later, when friends and family asked Skip and Nisai about their most memorable wildlife encounter, they would tell Skip's story, not just as an example of successful rescue and rehabilitation, but as a reminder that individual acts of compassion could have far-reaching effects on both wild animals and the humans who chose to help them. They'd learned that the decision to intervene when encountering wildlife in distress carried both risks and responsibilities, that the line between helping and interfering was often impossibly thin. But they'd also learned that sometimes, when faced with suffering that could be alleviated, the choice to act with courage and compassion could create outcomes that benefited not just the individual animal, but entire ecosystems and communities. Skip had taught them that wild animals were not just representatives of their species, but individuals with unique personalities, needs, and potential for recovery. His successful rehabilitation and release had demonstrated the remarkable resilience of wildlife when given proper care and the opportunity to heal. The Highway 75 guardrail, where they'd found Skip, remained unchanged, a stretch of metal barrier indistinguishable from thousands of others along Florida's interstate system. But for Skip and Nisai, that location would forever represent the moment when they chose action over inaction, when they decided that one injured animal's life was worth the risk and effort of intervention. Their story had inspired others as well. Skip's rehabilitation became part of Big Cat Rescue's educational programming, illustrating the positive impact that informed, immediate intervention could have on wildlife casualties. Visitors who heard his tale often asked what they could do to help injured animals, creating ripple effects of awareness that extended far beyond his individual rescue. Most importantly, Skip's journey from the roadside to his successful return to the wild had demonstrated the extraordinary bonds that could form between humans and wildlife when approached with respect, patience, and genuine care. The trust he'd shown his caregivers during rehabilitation and the successful outcome of his release proved that human intervention in wildlife crises could be both beneficial and ethical when conducted by knowledgeable professionals. The injured bobcat who had fought for his life against a busy highway had become a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of individual compassion to create positive change. His story continued to inspire wildlife rescues, support conservation efforts, and remind people that every animal's life had value worth preserving. Skip Thompson's split-second decision to pull over on that Sunday afternoon had seemed like just another act of kindness from a man who'd spent his career helping others in crisis. He couldn't have known then that he was about to embark on a journey that would connect him to the wild world in ways he'd never imagined, and that would provide one of the most meaningful experiences of his retirement. The blanket he'd used to capture Skip the bobcat remained in their car's emergency kit, a reminder of the day when preparation met opportunity and compassion overcame caution. It represented the possibility of connection across species boundaries, the potential for individual animals to inspire broader conservation efforts, and the power of rescue stories to change how people viewed their relationship with wildlife. In the end, the young bobcat who had nearly died on a Florida highway had become an ambassador for his species, proof that, with proper care and intervention, even severely injured wildlife could be restored to health and returned to their natural role in the ecosystem. His successful release was a testament to the dedication of wildlife rehabilitators, the importance of specialized facilities like Big Cat Rescue, and the extraordinary impact that ordinary people could have when they chose to act with courage and compassion in the face of suffering. The highway where Skip and Nisai had found their patient continued to carry thousands of vehicles daily, but their story had influenced how other drivers responded to wildlife in distress. Big Cat Rescue reported increased calls from motorists who'd heard Skip's story and chose to report injured animals rather than drive past, creating a network of citizen rescuers who understood that individual animals mattered and that professional help was available. Skip's legacy extended far beyond his successful return to the wild, rippling outward through educational programs, conservation initiatives, and the countless individuals who had been moved by his story of survival, rehabilitation, and the extraordinary bonds that could form when humans chose compassion over convenience. If you enjoy the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.